Okay, well, tonight's session 4 of Dilemmas of Being Male, and tonight we're talking about romance school. And these are just some observations I've made over 13 or 14 years of counseling, so it's not to be like most of these things, you could write books on them, and people have. Just a few comments and suggestions to point you in the right direction. A, introduction. We've looked at how boys grow into men, so that was our first session. God's calling on men to be leaders in the family, that is Genesis and how God placed Adam in the garden. Headship, and then last week we looked at male-female differences, what men need to know about women. And in this session we'll look at what women need and how men can meet those needs, and romance is one of those needs. B, Jesus was very attractive to women. Jesus was very attractive to women. Even though the Jewish customs did not encourage women and men to associate or travel together, Jesus had many women follow him. He must have touched some sort of nerve with them, for they supported Jesus and the disciples by their own means. So they paid not only their own way, but they paid the disciples for food and housing. They even wailed at his death from a distance, it says, a rare honor for a stranger who wasn't part of their clan. Jesus was the first male to treat women as equal in value compared to men, instead of them being counted with the possessions and cattle. As the Holy Spirit said through Paul, all are equal in Christ, and the women would have sensed that. And I believe that Jesus could have married any woman and had a happy marriage if that had been the will of the Father. And why was that? Because, of course, in his love and his graciousness, he would have caused them to be provided a healing environment for them, and they would have prospered and done well. And, of course, we're encouraged to be like Jesus. C, the female point system. The female point system. Many men are confused over what women want. This is understandable, since very few men had fathers that taught them the real nature of women. One way of achieving understanding is to observe what gives ladies strength and joy. And you might remember the concept we talked about in session 2 of the rose bush. That is, women want to bloom for the men they love, and so that blooming kind of thing out of strength and joy. Men get confused over what is a woman's need and what are their wants. Needs are things that keep people healthy and whole. Wants are passing fads. And women have a lot of relationship needs. And I believe that harks back to their God-given calling to be a helpmate. A very practical way of meeting a woman's needs is to discover and supply the number of points she needs to stay healthy. And I got this out of the Gray book, Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus. Women need anywhere from 20 to 40 points every day to feel satisfied with their mate. Every act that says I love you is worth 1 point. And following are some examples of those points. Number 1, physical touch. Holding hands, hugs, kisses, and so on. Number 2, emotional touch. Listening to the woman's feelings, sharing your own feelings with her, listening to the things that are important to her, telling her how much you appreciate or love her. 3, special touch. Making a special effort in some way, including her in your world, remembering her in some way when she least expects it. Buying her some personal luxury, jewelry, flowers, chocolate, perfume, which makes that person feel special. Unlike my father, who, being the practical guy that he did, if she needed a new kitchen knife, well, that's what he'd get her, No flowers, no perfume, always something practical. So my mother, in desperation, she's the one that took her money and went out and bought herself some perfume, because Dad was always buying her something practical that she would have bought anyhow, eventually. Number 4, protective touch. Making sure she's never alone if she doesn't want to be, like at a party. Earning enough money to give her basic financial security. Physical protection, like being responsible for locking the house at night. 5, spiritual touch. Praying with her, reading the Bible with her, leading her to church worship, getting together with other men to pray for her and the family. And finally, 6, practical touch. Fixing things around the house, mowing the lawn, keeping petrol in the car. And to some extent I put that last, because I think when it's absent, women get very grouchy, but when it's actually happening, the practical touch, I don't think women particularly appreciate it all that well. That is, let me give you an illustration. Let's say that grass is yay high, and I've been really busy, and I haven't had a chance to mow it, and Susan's nagging me. When are you going to mow the lawn? When are you going to mow the lawn? When are you going to mow the lawn? So I finally get out there, and I start mowing the lawn, and you know what, guys, well, some of you ladies might know too, how rotten some of those lawnmowers are. You pull the cord, the thing won't start, and you finally got the thing going after you've broken the cord and had to go down to get a replacement. And you're mowing the lawn finally, and she comes out in the middle of it and says, "Oh, honey, why don't you stop? You're working pretty hard. Come on in and have a cuppa with me." So what do? Do you keep mowing the lawn, or do you stop and go for the cuppa? Well, what's the answer, guys? Go for the cuppa. That's right. You go for the cuppa. Why? Because it's a relationship issue is going to take precedence over the practical. And having the cuppa is never going to come back again, that instance. But mowing the lawn, you can do that anytime. So it's like cars, guys. Some of you men get really involved in your cars. You know how many cubic inches or how many cubic centimeters are under the bonnet. But for most women, it's A to B transport. As long as it gets you there safely and the thing starts every time, who cares whether it's a Mazda or Toyota or whatever? See? There's sort of it's just assumed that these things are going to take care of themselves, and of course they don't. Somebody does have to mow the lawn. It doesn't just happen. But in the women's world, between the practical and the relationship, the practical is there for the relationship, you see. Where I think in men's worlds it's more the other way around. The relationship happens to be there to get the practical things done. So we got these alien creatures trying to talk about these things. But they're still important. And a good book to read on these particular type of things is The 5 Love Languages. Some of you might have read that already. But everybody, and not just male, female, but everybody's got a combination of ways that we express love and receive love. So if I've got a wife that for her a love language is practical, because maybe she didn't have a dad who ever was very practical, and as a male you'd supply that, then that gets bumped up from number 6 up to number 1 or number 2, because that woman is going to now take your servant attitude as love. So different people have different angles on this, and no one's the same. Okay, let's go on. All of these things are worth 1 point each. A diamond necklace and a passionate kiss can be worth the same amount depending on circumstances. And men, when you start understanding these alien creatures, they're actually cheap to run. And I said that at a men's breakfast one time as a provocative title, Women Are Cheap to Run. And what I was trying to say, of course, to the guys was, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to work this out. It's very simple. It's not that complicated, even though most men think it is complicated. But a couple of women picked up on it, and they actually thought I meant like they were cheap as in disposable. You use them up and you throw them away, which is, of course, what some men actually do. And that's why they picked me up on it. So let's explore this just a little bit more, because this is an important concept. I actually had a couple where the guy, as we were talking about stuff, he mentioned the diamond necklace. He goes, "Well, gee, you didn't seem to seem all that rapt when I gave you the diamond necklace that cost me $1,000. And the woman goes, "Yeah, but it's not any more important than a passionate kiss." And I could see this principle, at least with this lady, and I'm not saying that this works for every woman, remember our graph population study. But for this lady, she really did fit this model where everything is worth 1 point. The diamond necklace is worth 1 point. The passionate kiss is worth 1 point. Getting a little note from your husband is worth 1 point. You know, I wrote my wife a very ordinary, you know, honey, I'm going to the store, I'm going to be back, you know, in half hour. I love Daniel. And you know what? She still got it pinned to one of her hair clips in the bathroom. I'm going, what's that still doing there? But after 27 years, you finally get the concept that this is important to her. You know, in the old days, I would have just grabbed the thing, think, what a bit of rubbish, and chucked it in the bin. If she's putting it there because she wants to save it, I leave it there because she wants to save it. You know, because it touched something sentimental in her. You know. Okay, I say DF testimony re Susan's 3 special touches. I might have mentioned this in a previous class. I use some of these illustrations so often I lose track of where I have and haven't. But let me share with you three points that are probably worth more than 3 points in my wife's life. I was game enough one day to ask Susan, what are the 3 most important things that you appreciate about me? And this was the answer, okay? First one was, I love it when you bring me a cup of tea in the morning and sit in the bed and talk for a half hour. That's top of the list. Not trips to Europe, not brand new car, not mowing the lawn, not earning big bucks, which I don't, or anything like that. Number 2 was when I'm sitting in bed, when we go to bed together, and I put my arm around her. That was the second most important thing I do. Third most important thing I do in her mind is when I put my arm around her sitting on the couch watching the telly. Now, how much financially did those 3 things cost me? 10 cents for the tea bag, right? See what I'm saying? Now, I'm not saying that, by the way, that any of you ladies here, that would be your top 3, obviously, different circumstances. But it's likely to be something fairly similar and simple. It's not likely to be complicated. Very simple. And most men don't get it. It can't be that simple. It can't be that easy. Yes, it can be that simple. It can be that easy. But first I have to understand a totally different way of looking at the universe. And I have to have a shift in that. And by the way, part of your homework, guys, is I want you to find out 3 things of the lady in your life, whether it's a girlfriend, your mother, your daughter, or sister. Okay, I want to get you to find out 3 things. That's top of their list. Going on in the notes, the problem is that men expect women to have the same mercenary point system as they do. For men, an electric drill which costs $100 is worth 100 points. Socks and underwear are worth 1 point. So it is women's culture, not men's, that says it's the thought that counts. How many of you guys were aggrieved back when you're 8 years old, or 6, 7, 8, 9, when for Christmas, with great joy, you're opening your Christmas presents, and there was a new set of undies from your mom. And you've just been drooling over a new bike, or drooling over a new Playboy, yeah? PlayStation. Freudian slip there, but probably true. You wouldn't be getting it from your mom, though. And drooling over that new model car kit, model airplane. Anybody here relate to that? You know, getting hankies or undies or something like that, and going, there, you know? Pukey. And the reason is, because in male culture, it's not mercenary exactly like I've got it. I need to rewrite that because it's not quite fair on us guys. But it's mercenary in the sense that the electric drill that costs $200, you know, the Makita, that half-inch, that can punch a hole through concrete, that is a drill. That's not some sort of wimpy thing. And you can't just pick up one of those for $10. So you give me an electric drill that can punch holes through concrete, hey, that's a present. You know, not a handkerchief. You know? But guys, this is where you're going to have to re-educate yourself the handkerchief for the lady might do just as well as the $200 electric drill. In fact, it might be better. See? So in sharing love, I don't want to just share my love with Susan in a way that Susan can't relate to. I need to share my love in a way that she does relate to. You know? And so I have to look at my wife's love language and not just be egocentric and saying, well, this works for me, so it has to work for you. And that's what this course is all about, isn't it? Exploring those differences. Okay, any questions? Pretty straightforward. Let's go on. D, emotional protection. D, emotional protection. One of the major areas where men do not know how to interact properly with women is in the area of emotional protection. This area includes emotional touch as listed above, but more specifically involves respecting female emotions and listening to them in a non-judgmental way. Number one, most women need to talk. We've covered this a little bit before, but it's, review is important. You guys got to get this. Most women need to talk. Women have an inbuilt need to talk. It's a very healthy thing, with which most men don't understand. Women need to talk for at least 3 reasons. First one is, A, God designed their brains to be relationship communication orientated, and many studies have proven this from a scientific point of view. Therefore, female culture will also contribute to sharing and caring. B, many females are intuitives that process information by speaking about it. We looked a bit at this last time. Intellectuals, by contrast, process information silently, internally, then come to a conclusion which they may share verbally. When an intuitive woman wants to process information, she will talk it through out loud and thus modify it as she goes along, and we looked at that. Many intellectual men will correct an intuitive woman while she's still processing information and unfairly call her an idiot. She will come to good conclusions herself if left alone long enough to verbally process her information. C, many women need to talk out of their hurt. It's healthy for both men and women to verbalize their feelings. And women live on average 8 years longer than men because by sharing feelings, they reduce stress and tension and so keep their bodies healthier. Intellectual men, on the other hand, may blow their heart right out of their chest if they keep it all bottled up inside. And remember that God created the universe by speaking it out. There's something supernatural about words. James says that words have the power of life and death. When I speak it out, that I am annoyed, I will be less annoyed already. It's healthy for both sexes to share their feelings. Remember King David, who wrote some of the Psalms and vividly expressed his feelings in them. Well, he was no wimp. Okay, so just a bit of review. Number 2, men can help females be emotionally secure. Men can help females be emotionally secure. Men can facilitate the protection of female emotions by letting the female talk until they run out of things to say. Many females are bottled up and need release. Husbands and boyfriends can help by letting them chew your ears until they don't need to anymore. I had a lady come to Susan and myself at one stage before we had sort of hourly counseling, and this lady, dead set, spoke for 4.5 hours straight. And I think I probably just said and yes about 10 times through 4.5 hours. Marathon. Now, why would that happen?
The husband didn't listen.
Well, somebody didn't, that's right. And in this case, it was the husband. Okay, because the husband didn't listen. There was so much hurt bottled up in there. The lady had stored up 4.5 hours. Now, how long would you expect the next session to take?
3.5.
That's right. Well, that's about what it did. That's right. So we're progressing here. The next time it was 3.5. The next time it was 2. And because the marriage is going well and she's talked out some of this hurt now, she's down to 20-minute, what's the word I want? Maintenance. Her maintenance schedule, if you want to put it in car terms, is 20 minutes talk time per day, minimum. Okay? Because she doesn't need the 4.5 hours now, because she's had that release. But this is an important thing, that I can't eliminate the need for a hurt woman to talk. If you stop it, you will only delay it. Okay? Now, there's some guys that come to me and say, I just can't believe how much my wife can talk. She could talk the ears off a donkey. What that tells me is what? That he's not listening. And that because he's getting frustrated now because there's so much collected injury in there, and he's not listening, he gets frustrated, he stops her from talking, and all it does is delay the inevitable. She's just going to save it up. Now there's another 20 minutes added on to the 4.5 hours. Okay? So guys, stay cool, stay relaxed, let them chew your ears until they don't need to chew them anymore. And if you have to do a 4.5 hour stint the first time, do it. And if you're not doing it because you're loving your wives, do it for self-preservation, because if you do the short-term pain now, you'll have the long-term gain. It'll actually be better for you. You know, if that's all I have to appeal to here, I'll do that. Self-interest is a powerful thing. Do it because you're Christ-like, by all means. But if you can't do it for that reason, do it because it's good for you. It makes sense for you to not have this grump on your hand. Okay. Going on, after the 4.5 hours, once a female's had a release and feels listened to, she will feel secure and won't need to talk as much.
Doesn't that apply also to husbands if they need to share and release to their wife?
Yeah, the only problem is, for most guys, we only need to express, I think they worked out 6,000 words a day. Ladies need 20,000 words a day. It's easy for me to express the 6,000. And the other thing is, most guys aren't in touch with their feelings. So I'm not thinking, gee, I felt disappointed and I'm really annoyed and I feel betrayed by this person, da-da-da-da. No, most guys just went, whoosh, went right past them. They got no idea that if they looked hard enough in there, they'd find the feeling of betrayal. So they just ignore it. But that's affecting men's health, though. So I'm not encouraging that. It's just the male culture we live in. They don't notice those sorts of things. So if I'm not connected with the feeling, I'm not going to express it because I'm not even, I don't even know it's there. So, Darren?
For the male intuitives, then...
Oh yeah, male intuitives will work like this too. They need that sharing time as well. Absolutely. Absolutely, very important. Yep, Nick?
I'm pretty much a male intuitive.
Yes?
What I've noticed with some of the girls I've been interested in, they've got to talk through something and they talk it through.
Yep.
And once you talk it through, it's finished for them.
Yeah.
That's it, it's done. But for me, where I went done a lot of hard work to go and identify what a feeling is, and now sometimes I can actually figure out why I'm feeling that way.
Yep.
But once I've done it, that's as a guy, that's not the finish of it. As a male intuitive, I can identify the problem, I see where it's come from, now I want to solve it. Whereas the girl I was involved with, she's got it off her chest, she's happy, life's right as rain, and we're still no closer to a solution or dealing with it in any way. But she's shared it with me.
Well, that's right. But she's not finished because she hasn't actually found a solution yet. So
Emotionally, she doesn't seem to have the same need to find a solution that I do. Whereas I've got to find a response to it.
okay, well, I think that's your rationalism kicking in.
All right.
See, I can be the pure rationalist, which is totally disconnected to feelings.
Right, yeah.
So I just do it out of sheer willpower. Okay, that's the extreme. No connection to feelings. Other extreme is the extreme intuitive. That's just living by my feelings. Don't need to be rational. Don't have to fix anything up.
Yeah.
Now, both of those people are in trouble. So we want them in the middle, where all of us express our feelings to get it off our chest, and then we move to rational thought.
Yeah.
So remember last week we talked about, if you've got two universes, one's logical and one's emotional, and this can be whether it's male or female, what's supposed to happen first? The logical person has to go into the emotional person's universe before they can go into the logical person's universe. But I need to do this for myself. It's not just about relating to other people. I actually need to deal with my emotions first, or I'm not going to get to rational thought. See? So what's happening for this lady, she's connecting with her feelings, but she's not going, later on she's not going into logic. I got a classic example of this. I'm not sure, I don't think I've shared it with this group, but I had a niece living with me. And my niece, don't think I need to graph it like that, but anyways, I'll do it like that. My niece, with this niece, was quite interesting. Very hurt girl. Dad deserted her when she was a baby, and then her mom died of leukemia. So an orphan. We brought them over from the United States, these two nieces of my wife's. And I noticed a pattern. She'd get up in the morning, a bit of a grump, but as the day progressed, she came good. But also, as the day progressed, the tension built. And this is 6 p.m. So this is wake up. So at wake up, her motor would start going, but slowly. And then, around 10 o'clock, she was actually pretty nice to live with. But by noon, she's starting to get a bit agitated. By 3 o'clock, she's really pumping, and emotions are flowing. And then, around tea time, she'd go boom. And there'd be a big explosion, and there'd be slamming of doors, and so you could never have a rational conversation at 6 in the afternoon. 6 p.m., forget it. Ain't gonna happen. And then she'd release, and so overnight she'd calm back down again. And this was a daily occurrence. Not weekly, not 3 days, not weekly, not monthly, like some people have no, this was every day. So she slept on it. The next day, the same thing would come, boom. And this was our life with her. Yeah. Now, the problem was, how do you talk to the girl to move on? She's getting the release. But how do we move this on so that the thing that she's upset about we can actually talk through and find a solution to, so she doesn't have to have the emotions anymore? Okay? So, well, that's the problem here. And that is, I want to try to catch her there, but I'm at work by then. She's off to school. So I can't do it here. I can't do it when we get home because we're already up in this zone here. And, sometimes she went to bed later than me, so I'm already in bed before, she's had a release here and is fit to talk to. And when I grabbed her the next day, 10 a.m., or before 10 a.m., she'd go, Uncle Danny, that was yesterday. Like, totally different universe. Like, that was yesterday, 12 hours have gone by, and that's all forgotten and forgiven, and I had my release, kaboom. I slammed the doors, I spat in your face, and I'm okay now. See? Now we have another problem here, and that is me. Okay, I'm not innocent in all this. And I'm the sort of rationalist type that's not too connected with his feelings. So this is now, my cycle is over months. Over months. You can keep knocking me on the head. I can take it. And then months. So that's 3 months for me now. It's taken her 1 day to get there. It's taken me 3 months to get there. But what's happening there between the two of us? Kaboom. Kaboom. Now she's got, her recovery rate is the next day in this cycle. What's my recovery rate? 3 months. 3 months without her. See, so we had some problems. Well, she did. That's right. Yeah, that's true. You keep pounding me. I get up there, but then I'm stuck up there. Very hard for me to release those emotions that I've now generated, because I'm not used to doing that. She's used to it. That's her lifestyle. Boom and bust, boom and bust. And emotionally, she's fine with that. But the problem is she never goes to rational thought. She didn't. This particular girl didn't do that at that point in time. By the way, all this trauma caused her to become a Christian. So in the end, it was well worth it. But you know.
What was the root of it?
Oh, rejection, being an orphan, and all that her life story was telling her about her value and worth. And because Mom was a rescuer and indulged in this, there was no dad to counteract the emotional, the feeling side. 3 women in the same household, all feeding each other's feelings. To her, that's how you do it. You live by your feelings. And of course, if I do that, that's an extreme position. I'm going to be in trouble. You know.
Was it that time occurred at the end of the day, or that?
Oh, the boom was always at the end of the day.
Yeah, but I mean that the mother was involved in feeding this, so that
No.
the end of the day was.
No, I don't think. Emotional aspect. We have to have the rational aspect, and we have to do the heart work. As Nick was pointing out with one of his ex-girlfriends, you know, from Nick's point of view, she didn't move on to the rational side. Okay? But the problem with most of us guys is we know the rational side, but what don't we know? The emotional, and we don't connect with that first. And it actually blocks me. This is an ironic thing. My dad, you'd look at this German engineer and you'd say, this guy does everything by logic. But you know, my dad was a very emotional man in some ways. And some of the things that he did were fruitcake, because he didn't really connect with his feelings, so he pretended that there were rational things he was doing. I'll give you an example. My dad bought a radar set. Proper military radar set, Army surplus. Big tripod with legs like that, sunk in concrete, 6 foot down, with this mast like that. And this guy was going to put up this radar set to entertain himself and watch the planes land at the local airport. Now, anybody that's got any sense would think, there's no way the authorities are going to let you do this. Which they wouldn't. And by the way, it never got assembled. We put the tripod in the concrete, which took us about 3 days' work. 3 or 4 of us boys doing this with Dad, and the mast laid in the backyard until the day my dad died, in which case we took it to the junkyard, which was sad. You know? Now that's not rational. But my dad masked his emotions and rationality. He justified the things he did out of emotions, because he couldn't actually say, look, I love tinkering. You know, my dad did love to tinker. This particular engineer was an inventor, and he loved to tinker. Now, that's not a bad thing, but my dad would never recognize that he loved to tinker. See, he'd always come up with some rational excuse why I should be doing this. Why do I need a radar set? Why do I need a nano counter, which counts millions of seconds, you know? Every house should have one. And if my mother challenged this and said, well, excuse me, why do you need a nano counter? He'd then invent a rational excuse why I needed the nano counter, instead of just being honest and saying, the thing intrigues me, I love watching the little lights go back and forth. You know, I'm amazed that this thing can count in millions of seconds. You know, but my dad couldn't connect with that, you see.
Daniel, some time ago, might have been 6 to 12 months ago, there was an ad campaign on TV for a V8 car.
Yep.
And basically all it said was, I want one.
Yeah.
There's no rational thought
That's
that
it.
entered into.
That's it.
I want one.
Yeah. Yeah, they sound good, don't they? Brum, 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 when the things are idling and they're just rocking a bit there. Oh, lovely.
Yeah, but
That's it.
But the advertising people obviously decided.
Ah.
You can say it's going to go this fast.
That's
it's
it.
going to look great, whatever.
That's it.
And the women will say, well, there's no need for one of those.
That's true.
And the answer is, I want one.
Yeah. Oh, marketing guys have worked this all out, you betcha. In the end, if you think about it, no one has ever bought a car rationally, ever. You can do all the matrices and this amount of pros for this car and this amount of negatives for that one, and comparing the Saab and the Beamer and all that. And then after you've compared the differential ratios, you go to the transmission ratios and resale value. What does it come down to in the end?
The size of the boot.
Well, either that or I'm sick of it. I'll have the red one.
Or the wife wants the green one.
Yeah, that's right. In the end of it, all of it's just somewhere here. We make the final decision based on emotion, and that's what car salesmen do, don't they? That's what they're good at. Nick.
First example of that is the ABS braking system.
Yes.
Every car you have to put in your car, you have to have ABS braking system.
Yes.
People, 4 or 5 people, and you've got a car, and not one of them could tell me what ABS is.
But they had to have it. Okay. Well, let's move on here. Now I talked about letting the lady talk for 4.5 hours, and once the female's had a release and feels listened to, she will feel secure and won't need to talk as much. Now, by the way, another aspect of this, which I don't have in the notes, is that most people, a lot of women, haven't actually listened to themselves. So you get the women complaining, my husband doesn't listen to me, which is a fair statement. He probably isn't. But what is true is that the lady actually hasn't listened to herself either, and is using rationalization. Going back to that diagram, you got to be emotional before you're rational, and they're disconnected. They're disconnected themselves. You know, they haven't done the emotional work first before moving on to the rational work. They go here first. They don't do that. They haven't listened to their heart, is another way of putting it. And, something like this. My boyfriend didn't turn up last night, and I'm really hurt. Instead of acknowledging that, it's, oh, well, he had something good to do. He had something important to do, more important than me. So justifying it up here instead of actually being real in there, that, hey, that really hurt when he didn't turn up. So we're not the only ones, guys, that are doing damage to the ladies. Some of the ladies are doing damage to themselves. And we all need to be tuned into this. So what do men need to do here then? Men need to listen. A, without judgment. B, without trying to fix things. All you Mr. Fix-Its there, please don't do that yet. You do that as a second step here, okay, which is fair enough. Second step. First step is emotional work to start with. C, without logical interruptions, especially if she's an intuitive. D, by using door openers that encourage the woman to share her feelings. Remember I mentioned how, if my wife is upset, I might say something like this. Honey, you seem upset? Upset? She goes, upset? Upset? Yeah, I'm upset. I go, something like, it sounds to me like you're angry. Angry? Angry? Let me tell you how angry I am. Blech. Now that's what I want. That's what I want. For her health, because I'm a loving husband, and love is acting in the other person's best interest. Because I'm a loving husband, I want her to release. Now it doesn't feel good when I get puked on, but it washes off. No permanent damage. And it's healthy for her, and it's in my own self-interest. Why? Because I'm not going to get that later on a double dose. So I want my wife to have that release. And finally, E, by saying nothing. When I say nothing, I don't mean dead stone silence. I just mean don't use rational arguments here. If you don't know what to say, guys, nod and agree and grunt now and then and make sure she thinks you're still alive. Okay? And better to do that than to be Mr. Fix-It. But we're not talking about being quiet. We're not talking about saying nothing whatsoever. Okay? It's just you're not going to try to fix anything. And if you don't know what positive things to say, it's better to say nothing at all. That's safer than trying to fix it. Number 3, men need to protect women from rejection. Men need to protect women from rejection. Any human that has such a high relationship need is also vulnerable, more vulnerable to rejection. And part of a male's guardian calling from God is to respect women's weaknesses and protect them in it. First Peter chapter 3 says, verse 7, that husbands respect your wives as the weaker partner. And we looked at this a little bit, didn't we? I think second session, if I recall, we talked a little bit about it. That is, women have an emotional fragility that can cause them to get crook. And a good illustration of this is this diagram that's in your notes. So here, this is and it doesn't have to be male, female in the way I've written it. It could be an intuitive male, or it can actually be the other way around, because all of us have intuitive and rational parts to us. So it's not, as all of these illustrations, I'm doing an extreme version. So we've got a guy, we've got a lady, and they've had a fight. Have you seen this diagram before? Doesn't ring a bell? Okay, good. So the guy, I want you to think of the guy as a wolf here, right? And she's a big cat, so she's the lioness. And in the fight between the wolf and the lioness, who's going to come off second best? The wolf is. So the wolf goes into his cave. And what's he doing in his cave? He's licking his wounds, isn't he? Well, you can call it sulking. That's a female comment, but that's a lioness's comment there. But no, the wolf has genuine injuries because men are not indestructible. Men still have feelings just like women do. It's just we're not always connected to them, but we still got them. So he's in there, he's in his cave, and he's licking his wounds very self-centeredly. He's not thinking about the lady that much. He's thinking about how miserable he is. Now put yourself in the woman's point of view now. She's just watched the man that she loves walk away from her. This guy's turned his back on her, and he has walked away. And in the emotional environment of all this, no one's thinking particularly too rationally just yet. So I watch my husband whom I love, or my boyfriend whom I love, he's stomped out the door, he's gone out the front door, and he might not ever come back, because I've just read these articles in the women's magazines about the husband who just left his wife and never turned up again. Because it does happen. It does happen. Guys have they've had it, and they just walk out without a word and they never come back. So what am I going to feel? What possibly might I feel as I see this guy walk away from me? Rejection. Okay. So this guy, this female is feeling, I got to be careful here, it's felt rejection. It's felt rejection. Now why am I say felt rejection? Why didn't I just say rejection?
Not actual.
Why not? Because the guy didn't actually reject her. I told you what he's doing. He didn't reject her. He's doing what? Licking his wounds, which is called what? Self-preservation. Okay? So he's not deliberately rejecting her because he's trying to get revenge. He's walking away because of self-preservation. He's off licking his wounds because he's hurt. Okay? So he didn't actually reject her. It's self-preservation. It's going to lick his wounds. But she is feeling rejected, isn't she? Now, this is where a bit of a female psychology quirk, maybe it's an intuitive quirk. I haven't worked this one out, whether it's intuitive or female. But it goes like this. If I feel that you've rejected me, you must have rejected me. If I'm hurt, then you must have hurt me. Okay, that's the logic in this. That's the logic here. So if she is feeling rejected, the conclusion is what? He has. So now I'm going to ask why. So we'll do a little balloon here. Why did this guy reject me? Now, of course, sometimes the guy has rejected her. I'm not using that example. I'm using this example, which is very common. The guy actually did not reject her, but because she's felt rejection, she's taking that as reality. And she goes, why?
Because he didn't protect her.
That's true. We'll get back to that. You're one step ahead of me. So, why goes into this. Fill in the blank. He no longer cares for me. He doesn't find me attractive. He's angry with me. He's got another lady on the side. He's thinking that he never should have married me. You with me? You get the sort of concept here? And what does the Bible call those sorts of things? Vain imaginations. That's what the King James does it. 2 Corinthians 10, I don't know, verse 7 or something. Imagining. Vain imaginings. Useless, empty imaginings that are not real. And of course, who's supplying them? Old Nick is supplying them. And it all seems real. This is the illusion here that is so clever by Satan. It all seems real. The guy walked away, that's real. I'm feeling rejected, that's a real feeling. Because I'm feeling rejected, he must have rejected me. That's the deception there, okay? That jump there is where the deception comes in. But because I'm feeling rejected, he must have rejected me. And now, I have to work out why, because being relationship oriented, I want to do what? I want to make it right. I want to reconnect. I want to reconcile this relationship. And that is thumping her as well. So this lady's getting beat up two different ways here. She's getting beat up because she's feeling rejected, and she's getting beat up because she's got a vain imagination. So, how do we, Greg's already given you a clue, how do we stop this process from happening? By the way, write those in the diagram. This is a very important thing. I see this all the time. All the time. And some of the intuitive guys would do this too. Some of you intuitives would have vain imaginations as well. As a counselor, I've learned to try and not work out people's motivations unless they tell me. So I'll say to somebody, go ask Jesus, see what he says about it. And they come back to me and they say, oh, I think this is my motivation. I say, well, if that's what he said to you, then we'll believe it. See, because as soon as I start working out somebody's motivations, we get into swampland. You know, I mean, everything is relative. It's just a nightmare. It's just a nightmare. So, this lady, when she's saying, in her case, let's just say, you don't care. He doesn't care. That's the lie she's believing. He doesn't care. And I say to the ladies, listen, unless he's told you that he doesn't care, on that day, not 20 years ago when he said it once, and you've never forgiven him for it, no, on that day, if he didn't say it to you, you can't use it. It's from the enemy, and it's wrong, and it's deception. Now what could she do? She could say to this guy, when you walk away, it makes me feel rejected. So she's got every right to say to the guy about his behavior and how it hurts her when he walks away. Fair enough. But in this instance, this guy walked away because he had a need. Can we deny the guy his need to lick his wounds? No, that's real. This guy needs that space, okay? So that's a need. And because the male has that need, we can't stop that from happening. If you say, don't walk out that door or else, to your husband, won't make any difference because he'll do what? He'll just walk out of his head. He'll be physically present, but no one's home. Yeah? And we all know how to do that. So what could we do to stop her? This is where it started, wasn't it? So we can't stop that. That's a genuine need. So we're going to have to stop this. What could we do to stop her feeling rejected when her husband walks away?
The husband walked back and give her a great hug.
Well, he's pretty upset, so that's probably not going to happen. But you're on the right track. Keep going.
It did work wonderfully well for me.
Yeah, good.
I walked away and then come back.
Yeah. Okay. Similar to what Greg said, what could happen here? Well, what if we get this guy to say something to her before he walks off? Something like this. Honey, I'm pretty upset or I'm pretty angry right now. I need to go for a walk. I'll be back in a half hour. Would that help? Of course it would. Of course it would. And he could, if he knew his wife well enough, he could go one step further. He could say what? Honey, it's not that I don't care about you. I do care, but I'm angry right now and I need to go for a walk. And he could deliberately, strategically speak against the lie he knows his wife's going to say. Why? How does he know that lie? Because she keeps harping on it, doesn't she? He would have heard this thing, you don't care for me. He would have heard that a zillion times by now in his 20 years of marriage. It would not be a new saying. The problem is, it just went, I got this clever little piece of paper. I won't tell you what it's like in case I use it on you guys. But it's a clever little piece of paper. It's just got a simple sentence. And I asked people to count up the number of letters, let's say letter T's, in this little thing. And it's amazing how many people can't count the letters. And I won't tell you why not. It's a perceptual problem. It's a psychological problem. We have sensory overload, and I'm seeing all kinds of stuff in this room, but you could ask me tomorrow, what color was that sign at the back? And I go, I don't know. Well, my eyes saw that it was blue, but why don't I remember that it was blue? Because in my filtering system, my brain says, irrelevant information, just dump it. So it's like reformatting your hard disk. You just wipe out all the stuff you don't need. Okay? So, guys, you will hear this. And Jesus said it very clearly, and this is a problem. We don't believe the Bible. We don't believe the Bible. Jesus said so many wonderful things that we don't listen to. And one of the things he said is, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. People come to me for counseling, and they go, gee, I'm waffling on. And I try not to agree with them because they have been waffling on. But first of all, I'm really interested. I am genuinely interested, so it doesn't bother me. I don't care whether they're waffling on or not. Number two, though, is, and this is where the counselor actually comes in, the more they talk, the more I find out about what? Their hearts. That's right. It's my window. I want to know what's going on in there, and the window is what they say to me. And if in an hour the lady has said 5 times he doesn't care, guess what she believes to be true? He doesn't care. Now, if I went and asked the guy, do you care for your wife? He might very well say, oh, you bet I do. So what's happened? Well, exactly what I'm talking to you about. What happened is exactly this sort of thing. She felt rejection, felt he didn't care for some reason because of some activity or behavior that did not make sense to her, and she interpreted it as he doesn't care. Okay? So number one, we get this guy to say to her something like, now I do care, honey, I do care for you, but I just need some space. I'll come back in an hour. I'm going for a drive, be back in an hour. And that would lessen the felt rejection. What's the second thing that needs to be done here?
Touch.
Yeah, okay, touch, but a lot of women wouldn't let you touch them when you just had a big spat. If they're angry, if Susan's my wife's angry at Nick, she'll let me hug her because Nick's upset her. But if I'm the bad guy, no, that's not going to happen. Not right then.
Take it by surprise.
Later, maybe. Later, when we get to the rational stage, yes. But while we're in the emotional stage, unlikely. Well, she's got a problem. And what is it? The vain imagination, isn't it? And what can I do about that? Nothing directly. I mean, I can deal with it back here, but once she's got it in her mind that he doesn't care, once it's in there, what can I do to get it out? Nothing.
You can pray.
Well, okay, yeah, sure. Sure. Of course we can pray. That's true. Keep going, Greg.
It says it's the ideas that we demolish, every presumptuous notion that is set up against the knowledge of God, and we bring every thought into captivity and obedience to Christ.
That's true. 2 Corinthians 10 what?
10:5.
10:5. 2 Corinthians 10:5. This is the lady's problem now. Once it gets this far, and she's got the vain imagination that he doesn't care, the only person that can fix it is her and God. It's beyond this guy's control now. No matter what he does, she's locked into he doesn't care. Emotionally. It's got down into her heart now, and once it's in the heart, it's extreme, and it ain't going to shift without God's help. And it doesn't matter what you guys do, if it gets that far, we're in trouble.
Where does it start in the mind?
Well, vain imaginations, yeah, it's up here. There's hurt in the heart that then influences how vulnerable I am to the lie. And because women in the society that we're in are always hurt to some extent, means that they're going to be more vulnerable to this. Because let's face it, how many women magistrates are there? How many women cops are there? How many women professors are there? How many women pastors are there? How many women authority figures are there? Not many. So who are they going to most likely be hurt by? Men. So what's the heart going to say then? Men are rats. That's right. Well, that's what the heart's going to say. And there's an element of truth to that. There's plenty of us rats around. It's true. And so this Satan can easily pop in there and say these things now and really lock them into emotionally believing the lie. So what do the ladies have to do? Well, Susan had this great little meditating on that scripture you just read, Greg, from 2 Corinthians. And by the way, guys have this too. It's not just women, all right? We can have vain imaginations easily. And some of the vain imaginations we have is called false guilt, condemnation. I am a bad person. I am worthless. I'm no good. I can't get anything right. Or my dad's told me I'm an idiot. And you'll never amount to anything. So all of us can get locked in on this. And what do I need to do? I need to take captive the thought. Take captive the thought. And when I was dealing with my own condemnation and low self-esteem and these false guilt issues, I actually visualized a lasso, a bit of rope, and this thought, as it came towards me, I'd grab it with this lasso and I'd chuck it off the edge of the cliff. And Susan had, in the old days before they had these chemical things for the sanitary products in the women's toilets, they used to have actually little incinerators. And so Susan had this vision of taking captive this thought and cramming it down the incinerator and watching it go poof. Now, however you need to do that, you need to take captive the thoughts that are opposed to Christ. And one of the major thoughts that is opposed to Christ is that you're a bad person, that you don't count, that you're worthless, that you're hopeless, that you're a failure, whatever. Whatever the particular lie is that you believe. And those are heart lies. Okay? So this vain imagination is not just in this in this particular dynamic, we all struggle with that. And one of the basic things I had to learn as a Christian is the difference between conviction and the difference between that and condemnation. Convictions from Jesus, condemnations from the enemy. And this is a type of condemnation. He doesn't care for you because you're not worthy, you're not beautiful enough, you're not adorable enough, you're not whatever. There'll be some more to this than just that lie. Okay, so two things, wrapping it up. One, the guy needs to speak to her before he leaves. Actually says, the time limit, I'm coming back in an hour, something like that, I need some space. So he needs to actually say, I'm angry, which is my feeling. I need to go for a walk and calm down. I'll be back in an hour. But you know, honey, I do care for you. I just want you to know that. Then I walk away. Lessens her felt rejection. She's still maybe feeling rejected. The lie comes in. He doesn't care. And she says, no, Satan, I'm not believing that lie. My husband just told me that he cared before he went out the door. And I'm choosing to believe him rather than you. And that would fix it, wouldn't it? Very common. Okay, well, let's stop there. Any questions on this particular diagram? Very, very important. This happens all the time. All the time. And some of you guys who can't work out, why did this girl dump me, or why did my wife leave me, or whatever, it's because she got locked in on that on some of those things, and they were lies. And no one is going to persuade them once it gets in there. They got to do the work with Jesus. I have to do the work with Jesus if I've believed a lie like that. Yeah. It's a supernatural thing. Nick?
You think a lot of the places where you get bogged down is where we start second-guessing each other's motivation?
You bet. Stop trying to work out people's motivations. If Greg comes up, Session 4, page 4, E, Romance School. So you fill in there as romance. Romance School. When most women love a man, they want to spend a lot of time with him. It's as though she wants to miniaturize him and cart him around with her all day long. For most men, this intensity would be smothering, so they find ways of being on their own, like going fishing. Number 1, most women are sentimental, most men factual. Most women are sentimental, most men factual. An example of the differences between the sexes is a cartoon of tumbleweeds sitting with his girlfriend on top of a mountain. She, sigh, doesn't being up here among the stars fairly take your breath away? He, contrary, my dove, the altitude unplugs my nose holes real good. Men are so matter-of-fact they forget that women enjoy intrigue, mystery, and fantasy. These too are part of romance. The sentimentalism that women have is very important to their emotional satisfaction. And any man that can learn how to stay romantic will bless the woman he's in relationship with, even mothers. So challenge to you guys, your mothers are still women. I know it's hard to think of my mom as a woman, but they are, and they're just as romantic. They still love the little gift that says "I love you," the little sentimental thing. Number 2, romance is a learned skill. Romance is a learned skill. Like most things with women, romance is not that difficult once a male understands how. Now that's the problem, guys, isn't it? Most of the time, it just doesn't penetrate what I need to do. The object of romance it should be to give the lady memories that she can access when she's feeling down or lonely, often because of him. As we've said above, she wants to be with her man 24 hours a day, but he cannot do that both physically and emotionally. Number 3, romance is remembering the good times. If the kids there are bothering you, you can just shut the door if it's of any help. Romance is remembering the good times. Romance is setting up an illusion, and I'm using that not in a negative way, in a nice way, which is very satisfying for the female psyche. An example might be that the male wants to go once a year fishing with his mates on a Saturday. She would prefer he didn't because she wants to connect with him after a long working week. The solution? Take her out to a quiet dinner Friday the night before for sharing time. Then she can have the memory of the good time they had the next day, even if she can't have his physical presence. Okay, you see the concept there? You know, I've got a choice. My wife tells me, I'm going to be disappointed with you, Daniel, because I was so looking forward to spending Saturday afternoon with you. You know, my mates have just chartered a fishing boat. Happens once in a blue moon. Now I've got the choice. Do I go with my friends fishing and disappoint my wife, or do I stay home and miss out on the good times with the guys and feel like maybe I'm a bit of a wimp? Okay? Well, of course, first thing I'd be doing is praying, saying, Jesus, what do you want me to do? Okay, that would be the first thing. But on a practical level, I can't always stop my wife from being disappointed. My wife wants to spend 25 hours a day with me, and I can't do that. So Susan is going to be disappointed. I can't help that. And I don't want to sound hard about that, but it's beyond my capabilities of stopping that from happening. So what I can do, though, is I can help ease some of the pain. Go out to Friday night with her, take her someplace special, we connect, we share, she's had a good time. The next Saturday afternoon, when I'm gone fishing, she's got fond memories about what a good time we had the night before. And that fond memory thing is called romance. It's a very sentimental thing, and but us guys tend to rationalize it away as being unimportant. But it's very important. Number 4, romance is anticipating good things. Romance is anticipating good things. Another aspect of romance is the anticipation of a sharing time. Most men think that women want them to be spontaneous. This is true, of course, but another one of those contradictions that cause men confusion. Women want both. Now think about it. They want anticipation and they want spontaneity. So what do? When women want men to surprise them with loving acts, as in spontaneous, because this makes them feel special. You've changed the course of history for me. So that spontaneity says, you're special to me. I'm willing to change my preconceived ideas of the future to include you in that, and that's very fulfilling. That's spontaneity. On another level, though, women want to anticipate good times. This gives them something to fantasize about, and they enjoy their glad feelings. There's also an element of practicality to knowing things in advance. Women need to have the right clothes, makeup, organized babysitters, etc. for their adventure. Too often men are a bit too brash and impulsive. So most ladies are not going to appreciate you saying, tonight we're going to go hop in the four-wheel drive and we're going to do a 10-hour trip up to the snow, and not going to appreciate it. Now if you said it a week ago, so they could have an advance warning to plan the babysitters, to get organized, to think about what sort of clothes they want to take and so on, then it's going to be a grand adventure that they can indulge in and think about and be glad about it. And the spontaneity comes from being something different. You know, you haven't gone to the snow every second weekend for the last 50 years. You know, I've never done that before. And the spontaneity is not in the suddenness of it. The spontaneity is in being something different. So I can actually have the spontaneity, which is doing something different, with the advance warning of anticipation. And they're actually not contradictory. See? But, if your lady's just been saying, you're never spontaneous, we never do anything different, you always take me out to the movies every week, the objective is not to all of a sudden jump in a car and burn rubber down the freeway. Suddenly. That's not going to go over well. Number 5, keeping promises is the same as keeping trust. We've talked about this before when we talked about promise keepers. Important concept here. Keeping promises is the same as keeping trust.
Liar, liar. It's a really good example.
Liar, liar. Exactly. That is a good example. If a male is going to romance a woman with anticipation, he better deliver. There are few things as hurtful and trust-destroying than a male who does not keep his promises. It might seem like a little thing to postpone an afternoon cuppa, but the higher a woman gets her hopes up, the more she crashes when he doesn't deliver. Remember, you rationalists out there, whether you're male or female, it's not what the head says that counts here, but what the heart is feeling. A hurt heart does not care about the reason for its disappointment, only that it is. Remember my example. If I beat somebody on the head with a baseball bat and they have a sore head, and I did it accidentally, scenario 2, I accidentally hit somebody on the head with a lump of timber, does the skull care whether it's on purpose or accidental? Is the bleeding the same? Is the headache the same? Is going to the hospital the same? Well, the heart's exactly the same. Heart doesn't care. Can you just give me a bit of water? Thank you. Towel. Okay, so remember, in relationship, the head does not count that much. When we're talking about relationships, great, thank you. When we're talking about relationships, the logic of the head does not count that much, people. Relationships is emotions and spirit and heart stuff. It's not rational, logical mathematics. I need the rational to be practical in life. I need the rational to be problem solver. Okay? But it doesn't count for much when it comes to a relationship. Number 6, a banquet. Is the male sharing his feelings. A banquet is a male sharing his feelings. Have you ever had a long, long talk with a woman? It's a joyful thing, satisfying for both, like a banquet. Many men, before they get married, have these talks with their fiancée. When the guy shares his feelings with her, it's like food, a richly set table. Unfortunately, all too often, once they become married, the cares of life interfere with the long talks, and she winds up starving. The woman had the impression that the banquet would go on forever, and thus feels betrayed. It feels like they married somebody who only appeared deep. In truth, the man usually really is deep, but has lost the skill or motivation to share his feelings with her. Sad that I hear this statement all the time, he's not the guy I married. Well, who was the guy that she married? It was a guy who was romantic. It was a guy who made her feel special. It was a guy who he wondered how they could talk so long. 4 a.m. you came home because you talked till 4 a.m. And she's going, what happened to him? Where did he disappear to? He's turned into a monster, I had a lover back then, and now I got this cement block I'm married to. Now, is the guy a cement block? No, because he was capable of doing it back before they got married. The guy is deep. The guy can talk about deep things. The guy can talk about deep and meaningful stuff. The guy can share his feelings, usually. What's happened? Rationalism's taken over. The practicalities of life means he's gone up further into this thing here, and he's doing problem-solving stuff, you know? Because a lot of family life is problem-solving, you know? Who's taking the kids to the tennis this afternoon? And who's going to be the driver? Taxi service, and this and that, and mortgages. And I lost my job, and, you know, what do I do now? How do I support my family? Okay? But it's never too late, guys. I can always go back to the guy I was and rediscover that and make some priorities. Then we talked about priorities. In the appendix tonight, there's another review of that a little bit, which actually wouldn't be hurt to just have a quick look. Just look at Appendix A on page 7, 2 pages over. We'll just take a short excursion and come back. Developing quality relationships, Appendix A. Letter A, God-given priorities. In Acts, this is a review because we talked about this. In Acts 1:8, the disciples were told to spread the gospel first to Jerusalem, then on to the ends of the earth. Extending this principle to relationships, 1. Jerusalem represents a personal relationship with the living Jesus. Number 2, Judea represents our relationship with our immediate family. Singles would be the family of origin. Marrieds, it's the spouse and kids. 3, Samaria represents others in our immediate area, such as friends or extended family. And 4, ends of the earth is all others. B, so 1, I need to make those priorities in my relationships. You know, pastors, plenty of pastors' wives that are complaining that they don't get to see their husband much because the pastor's answering all the other phone calls at night from the distressed people of the congregation, and he's not spending his time with his family. So according to this, what should the pastor be doing? First, Jerusalem. He's got to have a personal relationship with Jesus, which some of them don't. Scary stuff. Second thing is he needs to be spending time with his family. Third thing would be Samaria. I'd probably include church activities in that. But the family has to take precedence. And then all the others. The second great section here on developing quality relationships has to do with the 2 great commandments. In Matthew 22:37-40, Jesus tells us about the 2 great commandments that cover all relationships. The 2 commands have 3 parts. First is love God. Second is love yourself. Third is love your neighbor. Did I get the order right there? Did I get the order right there? Who comes first? God comes first. Then who comes next? Me. Me. As yourself. So what does the as say? In the same manner. It says in the same manner as yourself. So the implication is I have to love myself first. That's right. We'll give you a quick example. I try to love people in the counseling office, okay? So am I doing my clients a favor if I'm not getting a good night's sleep and staying up and watching the tennis till 3 a.m. and not eating right, eating bowls of chips and getting crook? Is that going to help me love them? Yeah. Another example. All of you have probably been on an airplane, or most of you have. When the stewardess or steward is given the instructions about what to do when the pressure disappears because the cabin depressurizes and the mask falls out, they say this: when you have a little child, you should do what? Put your mask on first. Why? That's right. If you die, your kid dies. So we want to make sure that you live first so you can help the kid. Same principle here. If I'm messed up, how am I going to help you? You know? Now we're not talking about wants here, we're talking about needs, such as sleep, rest, good diet, health, psychological health. You know, if I'm not those things, I'm going to have real difficulty loving somebody else. I need to look after myself. If you have an alcoholic, what's the first thing you're going to do with the guy? Stop him from drinking, and do what else? Substitute the grog with good food and sleep and rest, taking care of the physical body. Because if the physical body isn't in good shape, you know, if I'm tired and cranky, how am I going to listen to somebody trying to explain to me that I've got an alcohol problem? I'm not going to be tuned in. Now, I've got to make sure that my physical body is in good shape. That's loving myself. Getting exercise, and so on. So, those three are in the right order. It's love God. Loving myself is not a selfish act. Remember, love is defined as what? Acting in the person's best interest. I'm not talking about best interest as in selfish interest. I'm talking about wholeness, health and wholeness. Daniel needs 8.5 hours sleep, and I need to ensure that Daniel gets 8.5 hours sleep. Okay? And if that means taping the tennis and watching it some other time, then that's what has to happen. Now, loving my neighbor is not difficult. If God is loving me and I'm loving God, and God loves me and I love myself, and now I am dignified, I have dignity and self-worth and confidence because I've entered into that place with God, and I'm physically whole and healthy and I'm looking after myself, how much trouble will I have loving other people? Not a problem. It's just going to flow out of me. It's lots of scriptures that look at human beings like vessels, and the Holy Spirit gets poured into me and fills me up, and then what will happen? It'll overflow and splash onto other people. And my job is to what? Get me filled with the Holy Spirit, and then the surplus will go on to you. C, how do I love God? So let's explain a couple of these things real quick. How do I love God? I develop a personal relationship with Jesus through prayer, reading about Him and worship. Hear and obey this mighty God who has all wisdom for life. Get your heart cleaned out of all its junk and old hurts. How do I love myself? Get yourself healed of rejection by prayer and fasting. See yourself the way God sees you. In other words, you're an eagle and not a worm. And acquire dignity by pursuing holiness and not feeling guilty of anything. E, how do I love others? Loving others becomes easy when I've embraced grace and I've developed a living relationship with Jesus. I then love myself in a dignified way, and the love of God has for me will flow onto others. Okay, let's just go back to page 5 now. We're down at the bottom of page F. Review of what men can do to connect to female. So just some review of all the things we've been talking about. 1, give women romance is making good memories of good times. So obviously you have to use a bit of nous to set up a good time. If she hates car rallying and you think that's romantic to take on a car rally, you missed it. You might enjoy it, but it ain't romantic. Number 2, listening patiently until you are reasonably certain they have finished their thinking process. That's not always easy. If I'm talking to an intuitive, how do I know when they're finished? Well, you don't. So sometimes you're going to make a mistake. You're going to cut them off, and they're going to go, hey, hang on a minute, I want you to listen to me. Oh, ding, ding, ding. Clue there is that they're not finished. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. Just listen to what they say. Number 3, listen patiently to their feelings and express your own to them. Feelings to an intuitive are like food to them. Number 4, plan things in advance so they can relish the anticipation of a relationship-rich event. Remember, it's all about relationship. Number 5, always keep your promises or don't make any. A woman likes to anticipate, but if they're constantly disappointed by a male who doesn't keep his promises, then they'll stop trusting him. 6, help women to not be rejected when the male legitimately goes into his cave, from the diagram. 7, pray about everything and give your family a sense of vision and something to work towards a common goal. G, conclusion for the unit. We'll look at an appendix in a bit, but just the conclusion for the moment. God deserves all worship. We have to start with God because He takes preeminence in all things. Number 2, like Jesus, only do what Father God tells you. In other words, a husband's job is to pray about everything. Husbands or guys here that are going to be husbands one day, I'm going to give you 3 clues. The most important thing I can tell you, in all seriousness, this is the top 3. Okay? Pray about everything. The second one is like the first. Pray about everything. And the third is like the second. Pray about everything. That's my advice to you. And I got 3 for the ladies who are wives or who intend on being wives one day. These are your 3. Set the guy free to make mistakes and deal with your hurt in a healthy way. That's the first. The second one's just like it. Set the guy free to make mistakes and deal with your hurt in a healthy way. And the third is, set the guy free to make mistakes and deal with your hurt in a healthy way. Now, why is that? Come on, we've been talking about guys. You 3 over there, tell me, why do you need to set guy free to make the mistakes? Because they're going to do it with or without your permission, aren't they? And why is that? They're human, and what's more, they had fathers who did not teach them how to relate to you. What can I tell you? You know, we live in an imperfect world, and that's the deal. Okay? And you're going to get hurt. You ladies, I say this to young women who want to get married. As they go do prepare and enrich with me or something like that, I say to them, look, this is the deal. Husband, you're responsible in God. You're responsible. And if you don't want to be responsible for this lady, because you think she's rebellious, don't marry her. And this is what I tell the ladies. And I say, lady, because the guy is imperfect, he's going to make mistakes, and if you want him to be perfect, don't marry him. Real simple. Real simple. And those 2 things are what I deal with all the time. All the time. Guys who don't take responsibility and women who thought they could change the guy after they got married to him. And it ain't going to happen. If he doesn't want to change, you know, wild donkeys aren't going to force it. Okay? So, and certainly in the big picture, for all of us, Jesus is the answer and pray about everything. So that's true for all of us. But I, as a husband, need supernatural wisdom, and the only way I'm going to get it is by praying about stuff. Okay, God deserves all worship. Like Jesus, only do what Father God tells you. In other words, a husband's job is to pray about everything. Now, I've got time to show you this little diagram, and so I'll do that right now. This is an example of a married condition. I'm going to take you back to your year at algebra. Some of you are saying, I don't want to go back there. I can understand that. Well, you might not. But let's pretend that you enjoyed doing this. What does X represent? X can be any number I want it to be. Okay? So pick a number. Martin. 5. It could be 5, it could be 5,000, it could be 5 million. And I rewrite my diagram, my sentence here, and I substitute the 5 instead of the X, and therefore Y is what? 8. So putting it this way, I've got 8 and I've got 5 to make this sentence balanced, to make it a true statement. Now, as I said, for the X I can have any number of zillions of numbers, but for Y there is only one number that makes this true. That's how it works. Coming back to you now? You haven't used it since year 8. I don't know why I used to have to teach it to you guys, but never mind, that's another story. Because I used to do that. as a math science teacher. Now, mathematicians call one of these the independent variable, and they call the other one the dependent variable. Which one is the independent variable? That's right. X is the independent variable. It can be whatever I want it to be. And Y is the dependent variable. Why? Y as in W-H-Y. Why do we call that the dependent variable? Exactly. It depends on what we pick for X. Now, in a one-flesh environment, a godly marriage, who is the independent variable? Male or female?
Female.
Who's the independent variable, male or female? In God, all the different answers and solutions are open to me. I've got multiple choices here. And my job is to do what? To pick the right numbers. And what's going to happen to her? If I pick the right number, she gets blessed. If I pick the wrong number, she's going to get hurt. Because they're dependent on what we pick. And this is the problem. If I'm not willing to pick the right numbers, I shouldn't get married. If I'm not willing to put the energy and effort into picking the right numbers, I should not, as the male, get married. And because none of us guys is perfect, is the lady going to get hurt? Absolutely. And if a woman does not want to get hurt, she better not get married or be in a relationship. Simple. That's how it works. There's no way around it. That's the system. And if you ever played a game of chess, the way you win the game of chess is you learn how the pieces move, don't you? And you learn some strategy. Well, we're in a game called life, and it's best if we knew what the rules were and we worked with those rules, because if you try to buck the rules, you're going to get hurt. Any questions about this? And, I feel for the ladies. I feel for them. Why? Because there's a dependency here that nobody would feel comfortable with. I don't blame them for not feeling comfortable, for feeling, hey, why am I tied to this guy who's a concrete block, and every time he falls off the cliff, I got to go with him? Well, you get sick of going splat after a while. Now, what I need to do, and ladies, this is a suggestion for you single gals here, find a guy who's responsible, who picks right numbers, and the guy that you marry is what you see is what you get. So if you're trying to change him, you can forget it. Don't count on it. You get 50, 60 years of married life exactly with rebellion against God, and so was I. She was a backslidden Christian, and I was a heathen. And she took a huge gamble getting married to me. I came so close to going off into the world and messing around there and wrecking my marriage. There but the grace of God go I. Could have easily happened to her. She took the risk. It worked out for her, but a lot of them it doesn't work out. Okay, let's go on. Number G3. Receive God's wisdom for your life by listening to the Holy Spirit and reading the Bible. 4. Learn what it means to be the head or a servant from God's perspective if you're male. If there is or ever was any seduction, being pulled away from God's purposes by a woman in your life, confess and repent of it. We're going to talk more in the workshop about this and do some work on it. 6. Get your life from Jesus and pass on this godly strength to your woman. Don't suck it out of her. That's called witchcraft. Let me make this a very blunt statement. Guys who rely on women for their comfort are using witchcraft. Because they're supposed to be getting comfort from whom? The Holy Spirit is the comforter, especially for men. 7. As Jesus instructs you in wisdom, gain your woman's respect back. 8. Make sure you meet her needs, not necessarily her wants. You will need God's wisdom and a listening ear towards your woman to discover the difference. H. Homework. Number 1, find out the top 3 things that you do that bless your girlfriend, wife, mother, or sister. Okay, if you're married, do it for your wife. If you're not married and you've got a girlfriend, do it with your girlfriend. And if you're neither of those two, try your mom or your auntie or your sister or daughter. Number 2, review your priorities and vision for life in developing quality relationships. We looked at that already. Check out your priorities. Make sure they pass the filter. Number 3, with all the females in your life, from mothers to daughters, try to bless them with regular points. And we'll look at this in just a minute, Appendix B. And number 4, read some books on listening to God and read some books on male-female differences. And Martin's wife read a book recently that he recommended to us, or she does. It's called Making Sense of the Men in Your Life by Dr. Kevin Lehman. So making sense of the men in your life. So apparently it's going to be talking about guys from a female point of view, what women need to know. Is that right? Yep. Okay, I'll say it again. I'll write it up on the board. Making sense of the men in your life. That's the title. Dr. Kevin Lehman. Okay, just look at the appendix now. Husbands, how to win your wife, the BEST technique. Starting with the B. B for bless. Build her up in words and behavior, do good, not evil. I want you guys using this as a scorecard for yourselves, how well you're doing, okay? Do you consider that you build her up in words and behavior? Be good if we asked her whether you did that or not. Do good, not evil. Seek peace and pursue it at all times. Never speak scornfully, angrily, or deceitfully. Now, by the way, I can be angry and share my feelings of anger without being angrily. There's a difference, isn't there? I can say to my wife, honey, I'm really angry about this, but that's not angrily. Angrily is when I'm shouting and using swear words and being grumpy. So I don't have to slam the door to give somebody the message that I'm angry. I can just say, I'm angry. Real simple. Learn the new way of doing it. Show empathy and understanding. Live in harmony with her. Do not be proud or conceited. This is tough for some of us. Do not take revenge. Do what she considers right, but check with Jesus. Do kind things for her. Call down God's favor upon her. Speak good and loving words to her. Be appreciative of her. Intercede in prayer for her. E for edify. Build her up. Nourish and cherish her. Give her sympathetic understanding. Resolve never again to be critical of her. Study her and build up her low areas and weaknesses. Think of her positive qualities every day. Overlook mistakes. Recognize her talents, abilities, and accomplishments. Verbalize to her praise and appreciation. Express confidence in her. Communicate your respect. Show publicly and privately how precious she is. Use your face. Respond with a smile. Show courtesy to her. Cheer her up in every area of her life. Treat her well socially. S for share. Make eye contact. She sees silence as negative feedback. Remember the vain imagination. Give mutual trust. Confide in each other. Be relaxed when together. Share everything, activities, and interests. Bridge the separate ground each has in their lives. Share the other's love. Spend time together. Have fun together. Share feelings. Work for intellectual agreement on major issues after you've been emotional. T for touch. Snuggle with her in a non-sexual way. Sit close to her at every opportunity. Kiss her for no good reason. Sleep close to her. Hold hands often. Strive for emotional intimacy through touching. Slow down and take time to be with her. Try to go to bed at the same time. You girls at the back there, you young ladies, would you like to be married to a guy that did that? Would that be okay? That'd be a winner, wouldn't we? Any questions? Susan? No, I didn't. You want to advertise the next unit? I'll advertise the next unit. Don't forget, we got workshop next week, and then we go straight from there to personal communication, which is both personal and counseling listening skills and so on. So blocks to listening and expression, whole messages, assertiveness, conflict resolution. So communication, especially between opposite sexes. On Tuesday night we've got Why Our Problems Control Us, which is heart stuff and rubbish dumps and rats and stuff like that. Looking at the heart, how does the heart get the way it is, and so on. So those are the 2 next units, and they're starting the week after the workshop. Okay, let me just pray for you, and those of you that can stay and help us pack up, that would be appreciated.